Chapter 2. As they neared hour 5 of their journey, Benny caught sight of a shining dot on the surface of the looming moon. The Lunar Taj. His thumping heart might as well have been powered by a supercharged hyperdrive engine. The Taj was not the only thing to blame for this. Benny was starting to worry that Drew might get them killed before they even landed. "Maybe I can pry this loose and we can take this thing out for a real joyride," Drew said through clenched teeth as he tried to wrench the Space Runner's flight yoke out of its locked position. Benny said, "Should you really be pulling on that?" "Don't tell me you're scared." Drew's face was starting to turn red from exertion. "Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Don't you want to be the first person to carve your name into the surface of Mars or something?" "How would we do that?" Benny asked. But it was obvious that Drew wasn't listening. He made a final desperate pull, only to end up losing his grip and crashing back into the pilot's seat. There was a heaving sound from behind them. Benny had almost forgotten the third member of their party. He and Drew turned, peeking over their headrests at the girl in the back seat. Her freckled skin had an almost greenish cast to it. "Hey," Benny said. "Are you okay?" "Negative, flyboy," the girl replied in a chirping, clipped tone. She put her hands on the back of her head, burying her fingers in the reddish-blonde hair that was pulled off her forehead with what looked to Benny like a piece of twisted silver wire. "Girl down, out of commish, max exploits." Drew cocked his head to one side. "Are we sure that's English?" "Sounds like she's talking in robot," Benny said. "Noobs," the girl muttered. Her suit said Robinson, but her first name was Ramona. Or at least, Benny was pretty sure that was right. She'd been jabbering quite a bit before takeoff, not to him or Drew, but to the various electronics she'd brought with her. Benny thought her accent was British, but based on the gibberish she spouted, he couldn't be sure. Since blastoff, though, Ramona had hardly said a word. As far as Benny could tell, she'd spent most of the flight with her head between her knees, braced for a crash landing. There were only supposed to be 100 USCAB winners. Benny's invitation had said so. Yet, when the transport dropped him off at the launch site earlier that morning and he saw the rows of 50 shining space runners for the first time, the adults in charge mentioned that there would actually be 101 kids going to the moon. Benny had been assigned to the vehicle with an extra kid in it. As he watched Ramona reach for a barf bag with shaking hands, he worried that his space runner assignment and the missing spider were bad omens for what the rest of his visit to the moon was going to be like. Drew leaned closer to Benny. "If she pukes, I'm flushing her out of the emergency airlock." Benny chuckled until he heard Ramona groan while wrapping her arms around her stomach. Then, feeling a little bad for her, he turned back around in his seat. In front of them, the moon was getting larger by the second. Drew tapped on a few of the dashboard displays. Benny watched his fingers fly over the screens, adjusting the cabin lights and air conditioning. He seemed right at home in the Space Runner. "No point in going back to sleep, I guess," Drew said. "We're only a few minutes from descent." "Have you done sims for this or something?" Benny asked. Drew shrugged. "I have a few, but I never play them. My father has one of the first Space Runner models, so I've ridden around in it a little bit. They're pretty easy to handle once you get out of the atmosphere." Benny's forehead scrunched up as he considered this, trying to figure out how someone whose family owned a Space Runner ended up winning an USCAB. Perhaps Drew was just lying about his previous visit to the Taj and everything else. Or maybe he was a spoiled kid who lived in a shining tower in one of the luxury buildings for the richest of the rich that had sprung up when the cities began to be overrun with drought refugees. "So, what was your application vid like?" Benny asked, figuring this might get him some answers. "Why do you think Elijah picked you?"